This is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield from the Lynn Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Michael provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to The Wealth Puzzle. I'm Mike Mansfield. Appreciate everyone logging in, listening, or viewing, or whatever you're up to. By myself today, no Tana. Fortunately, Tana is she's traveling. She's up in Utah. Her son is having a final of 3 surgeries. Hopefully, he'll be seeing better days pretty quickly here. So anyways, wanted to just kind of touch in. I know it's been a few weeks. There's been so much news. There's been so many things rolling out that are interesting, concerning, overwhelming, exciting. Pick your poison. Even this week, I'm doing this on Tuesday, May 14th. The reality is here in a day or so, we have new inflation CPI data coming out that ought to give things a spin. But hey, first and foremost, let me just kind of jump into some things. One is happy end of tax season. So tax season ended just a few weeks ago. Good news. It was as chaotic as usual. It was problematic as usual. The government has made that the most complicated, ridiculous, out of control thing that I can imagine. You know, I was reading this article where they're trying to quantify the productivity loss to the U.S. economy based on all the time people spend preparing their taxes, the money they spend on paying their taxes. And it's like $1 trillion, they say, is the energy that goes into tax season for people. What a waste. The government can't figure it out. And then I get this email that only will say clarified it even further. What I'm showing you here on the screen, if you can see this, is they've been tracking this. And so what's funny is I can remember back when the US tax code was 20 million words and people would say, oh my gosh, this thing is insanely huge. Well, congratulations, as of 2024, the US tax code is officially 35 million words. Now, that might not mean a lot to people. It's like, I don't know, I wrote a 1-page thing. I was 1,000 words or whatever the thing is. What they do in this visual that you're seeing is they stack up all of this stuff against it. They stack up War and Peace, Lord of the Rings, Atlas Shrugs. What do they got? The Bible on here. They've got the Twilight series, Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Gone with the Wind. There's more. You stack up all of these things, all of these giant reads that are thousands of pages, millions of words. That's only 6 million words. Of all of those things, think how long it would take you to sit down and read through all of those series of books and the Bible and all of this stuff. That can't even begin to shake a stick at how big our tax code has become. So if you think that's normal, I don't know what to tell you. But obviously, our tax system is completely out of control at this point. Very shocking. So I thought that was entertaining simply because obviously it's tax season and people are curious why things seem confusing or complicated. Well, it's because they are. So there you go. Anyways, moving on. So one of the things I talked about earlier in the year is I talked about what's going to drive the stock market, right? The 3-legged stool. There's the presidential election, which is as chaotic as I left it last time I made a video. There's earnings. Earnings are coming out fine. For the most part, earnings are doing okay. I have to admit, I'm getting a little concerned watching the news because the meme trade, right? The GameStops, those kinds of stocks are suddenly getting play and airtime and going back up again. Well, that all happened at the end of 2021 before the crash because people became a little too euphoric and gamblesque with their moolah. So something that we're kind of watching and being curious of at the moment. The third biggest leg of the stool, whichever finger I'm going to use for that, was what's the Fed going to do? And so, you know, a month or two ago, all of a sudden, inflation data started coming out, not very favorable. And here, let's see what it looks like. Here it is. Here's a chart, 1 month annualized inflation data. This goes back, this is a 6-month chart from October to March. But you guys notice something if you're looking at this. Annualized inflation in October last year was 1%, then 1.9, then 2.8, then 3.7, then 5.4, then 4.6. It's trending back up. Well, that's not good for Mr. Federal Reserve to cut rates. Remember, that's one of the 3 legs of the stool that's driving the market and been driving the market is the feds are going to cut. They're going to make money cheap and feel good and make us all happy again. Well, the theme for the last number of months has not been that. And then what happened was a week ago Friday, all of a sudden we got a jobs report, and the jobs report was basically garbage, and the stock market rallied on that. And you're like, wait a second. If I went back to college, now college is a cloudy mess at this point, but if I went to college and took an Econ 101 class, it would normally say good economic data is good and bad economic data is bad. That is not the world we live in anymore. The world we live in is bad economic data is good. And so we get bad jobs report and the stock market goes up because it all has to do with the counterbalance of what the Federal Reserve is going to do. If inflation's going down, the feds are going to cut. So if inflation's going up, they're not going to cut. Therefore, that's hard on the market. The market gets all pouty. Well, wait a second. If we get garbage in economic data, then all of a sudden, maybe the feds will cut anyways to keep the economy from going into a recession. And so getting that bad data point caused a little rally in the market, kind of got it back more or less to zero, but it's kind of hanging out. But this is another big week. We're back to what is inflation looking like for last month? What is the information? Is it going to be problematic or not? So we're about to find out. So feel free to buckle up and we'll see what happens. Obviously, from a political standpoint, the feds, they really need to cut by July. They might be able to push it to September. That seems like pushing it real tight. So July certainly seems more obvious to get these done before Mr. Election happens. But we'll see. Once again, we're not the Federal Reserve, so we'll see what they got going on. What's amazing, though, is the headlines, right? Those headlines are saying, yeah, but the economy is good, right? I mean, coming out of the president's office and whatnot, we have a strong economy. We have good GDP. Everything is real stable. We have low unemployment, a tight labor market. As I've talked about to all of you before, we feel that some of that is a little misleading. When the government is leading the charge on the hiring, keeping the unemployment rate low, yet the government has no money, so therefore we hire people on the government's credit card, that doesn't seem like the best economics. When so much of our GDP is baked these days on government spending, government inventory building, stuff like that, once again, our government doesn't have any money. So seems a little too excited. I'm going to pull up a different slide real quick. I hadn't planned on using it, but since we're here, usdebtclock.org. Everybody should go here. This is a fascinating site because what it shows in the big left corner here is the national debt, $35 trillion. On the right side of the screen at the top, it shows that $4.8 trillion. That's our tax revenue. And right below the big national debt, it shows our current spending of almost $7 trillion. Now, if anybody can do any basic math, you'd say, wait a second, we're bringing in 7 trillion, or excuse me, we're bringing in 5 trillion, we're spending 7. Seems like upside down math, right? This is part of the problem is that the government is in charge of all of the hiring that's keeping the unemployment rate low. And the government is also in charge of all the spending that's keeping our GDP probably a little more robust than it otherwise would be. Yet the government is as broke as a joke. I don't know. Seems a little confusing. What's interesting, I know it's kind of hard to see here, right in the middle of the page on the right side, it kind of has the yellow warning stuff around. I'm trying to circle with my mouse. It shows interest on our debt, $827 billion. I point that out because that's fascinating. A little over a year ago, that was like $350 billion. A month ago or 2 months ago, it was $750 billion. Last week when I checked, it was $806 billion. Now it's almost $830 billion. That number is skyrocketing. That's the interest payments on our credit card. So to put that in perspective, the current interest on our credit card is $800 billion, yet our tax revenue is less than $5 trillion. That's a huge percentage. In fact, if you move over one line next to that $800 billion, guess what? That's basically the same money we spend on the Defense Department. Is just the interest on our credit card. So if everybody wants to say that things are so rosy, everything is going so well, our government is fiscally responsible, life is good, hallelujah. I don't know, have at it. Woohoo. Anyways, fun facts. One of the things that I think is interesting that is shaping up right now is possibly a play. So what a lot of people have been doing is cash has been paying more, right? So this chart on the screen, a little squiggly line, here, actually, I can probably draw on this. See if I can annotate on the fly. The bottom, oh my gosh, what is this square over here? This bottom section right here, this bottom section that I just highlighted, that's back when interest rates crashed for 2020. So the Federal Reserve brought the Fed funds rate basically to zero. Interest rates were the lowest we've ever seen on the treasuries. The way that it works is, the way a bond works is when interest rates are falling. Oh my gosh, I want the box. Trend line. My lines are all the way over there. That ain't working for me. That ain't working for me. It's embarrassing. Told you I shouldn't do this on the fly. So when interest rates are going down, like that line downtrend, when interest rates are going down, bonds make money. And the reason is if you think about it in a microcosm, let's say a brand new bond, think of it like a CD. Maybe a CD is better for you all to understand. You can go to the bank, you can buy a CD. So if last year you could buy a CD that was 5%, and this year you can buy a CD that's 4%, you walk into the bank and they're like, hey, we can get you a CD for 4%. And then you go talk to your friend at lunchtime, like, well, I have one that's at 5%. You'd be like, whoa, that's not fair. I want a 5%. I'll tell you what, I'll buy your 5% one for you. I'll give you a little premium on it. I'll pay you a few bucks if you sell it to me because I don't want the lame new one. And so when interest rates are falling, as they were doing in that time period to the bottom that I just highlighted, bonds were making a lot of money because those old bonds already issued at higher interest rates were more and more and more valuable as new bonds were being issued at nothing. Then what happens is when the line cycles up, let me see if I can kind of move my line here. When the line cycles up and now interest rates are going up, newly issued bonds at low rates, they're worth less and less and less and less because why would someone want to go buy your 1% bond when they go get a brand new one that's paying 5%? So it's like going to the garage sale and buying your garbage for cheap. So what's happened for the last few years is interest rates have come up a lot. The Federal Reserves have raised rates a lot since 2022. And that rate increase has really damaged the bond market. It's caused a lot of people to run over to money markets because you're like, wow, I can go into a money market fund. I can make 4 or 5% on my money. I can buy a CD making 4 or 5% on my money. This stuff is phenomenal. But what happens is everything cycles. The reason that interest rates were going up in this time period was because the feds were raising rates, and the opinion was they would continue to raise rates. What has happened, I'm going to make a different chart here. Let me shorten this up. What has happened in the last year is all of a sudden the attitude shifted, right? All of a sudden we're talking constantly like the Fed's going to cut rates. The Fed's going to cut. And so that's what this big peak to trough. Oh my gosh, I got to illustrate on this too. Let's see. So this down line right here was basically starting last year where the attitude had finally shifted. Hey, the Feds are going to cut rates. This is so exciting. They're cutting. And so as interest rates have fallen, bonds have now made money. The problem is bond investors in that time period had probably already lost so much money with the rates going up that now they're just kind of getting back to even, which is fine. And then all of a sudden for this year, interest rates have been slowly trending back up because all of a sudden, oh, dang it, is the Fed really going to cut? When are they going to cut? Inflation's a little pesky. Well, look, we're at a point where, I mean, based on the last Fed meeting just a week ago, they said, hey, they're not even thinking about doing rate increases. You kind of see why there was that little micro drop here recently is all of a sudden the Fed's like, don't worry about it. And then you have a jobs report come out that's poor, all these things lending towards the idea that the Feds are probably going to cut. So to that theme, if you think the Federal Reserve is going to cut in the next 6 to 12 months, which is probably a fair statement, then even though money markets are good, making your 4 or 5% is good, starting to switch to a more of an intermediate bond kind of a 5 to 7 year bond, maybe a 5 to 10 year bond, something like that, you're still going to make that 4 or 5% interest off of the dividend yield at the moment if you purchase the bonds. But if interest rates finally get cut, remember, bonds make more money when the market's going down, when interest rates are going down. So the reality is that bonds will probably end up giving you, I don't know what, because we don't know how much is going to finally get cut. Maybe another 1, 3, 4, 2% kind of a return on top of the interest. So all of a sudden, if a money market's paying 4 or 5%, possibly over the next year, those bonds might give us kind of like a, who knows, 7, 8, 9% return. So to that theme, we're starting to look at and counsel clients to actually go back into bonds where we haven't been in a number of years. And so if you have money market funds, which are great, you're making your fixed rate, but if you want to kind of be just stick your toe in the water to see if it's warm, just a little bit, just a micro amount of risk, a little more, is switching some of the money market, some of your cash position to kind of short, moderate term bonds might create a better net return over the next 12 months. So that's kind of my food for thought for the day. But in any case, just wanted to make a quick video here. We'll be back as soon as Tana's back in action with us to try to do a joint video. So anyways, if you guys got any questions, comments, concerns, obviously, as you well know, always reach out. You know, our phone number, 805-500-7035. You can visit our main website, thelindgroup.com. I appreciate all the feedback we get. So certainly send us an email. Let us know how we can steer the show, answer questions, all that kind of fun stuff. Otherwise, I hope that everybody has a wonderful day. And now I got to hit the exit video here, which I always forget.